What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Dylan Talks Tone 2. There we go. Swapping microphones. So, we're going to talk a little bit about this Kemper versus Line 6 pod video. We'll go over the comments that came in from that. That was a really fun video to do. It's funny because obviously time marches on, technology marches on, and it's super fun to see that. Personally, for me, it's super fun to see that. But it was just interesting to take one of the earliest known, not earliest known, but kind of earliest popular quote unquote modelers, even though it was done differently back then. So I don't know if modeler is really the right word, but really neat, really neat. I can't believe how small the processor is in that thing compared to what we have today, and we're probably going to say that again, in 10 years. But pretty interesting thing. So okay, here we go. Let's go through the comments. We'll talk about some of this stuff. I remember liking the tone of the pod, but not liking that it sounded the same regardless of whether I selected the bridge or neck pickup. My current rig doesn't have that problem. I agree. It was just sort of, I think I said that in the video, it was just sort of flat all the way through. I got started recording guitars using a pod too. I remember the cabs were bad and or weird. Like I used way different cabs from the matched ones. For example, if I used a 1x12 for high gain tones, I bet you can get much better sounds with decent IRs. Yeah, so what he's saying, same thing. It's kind of like it was a sort of garbage in, garbage out thing. No matter what you do, no matter what you adjust, no matter how I was messing with it some more, and it's just kind of, it does a thing. It has some preset sounds, but that's it. Hey, Zeba. No digging. He's got a little spot over there he likes to dig in. Zeba. Hey. Zeba, come here. Okay, let's see. Forget about what the Kemper or Line 6 says is modeling. Who cares? There are no bad tones. If you like these things, just play around till you find something you like. As I see these multi-effects come out since the 80s, the users say this sounds great, then the next model comes out, and then the previous model or brand was crap. I'd say most people are just sitting in their bedrooms analyzing modelers and listening, if it sounds like this or like that. That's absolutely nothing to do with playing their instruments. Less talking, more learning, playing, and entertaining people. By the way, the Kemper had just as much noise as the Line 6. So, okay, we'll talk about this a little bit. So, first of all, we talked about that in the video. I think as technology gets better, you're going to get closer and closer to the look, the sound, and the feel of a proper tube amp. But the margin's just going to get closer. It's never going to go above it, right? That's not the goal. The goal is for it to be as close as possible. And yes, over the last 20 years, there has been a lot of advances in technology. It totally makes sense. But Zeba, hey. But I really think it's going to catch up. I really think it's going to catch up. And the fact that you can sit and listen and record in your room is awesome. That you can produce properly good guitar tone in your room is awesome. Now, can you get neat sounds out of that thing? Absolutely. I think the fuzz thing was kind of fun. Sometimes when you want to get a bad sound, quote unquote bad sound, to make a good sound, that's pretty fun. By the way, the Kemper had just as much noise as the Line 6. So it did not have the same amount of noise floor. One thing that people should understand about the way we do stuff here is I don't use noise gates for anything because I like to hear my pickups and understand how noisy they are. The other thing you have to understand too about the way we make videos is in the room with all the lights on and everything, there is a lot of noise in the room. So when you're when we're doing it in that environment, yeah, it doesn't give it the best light. But what I will say, it won't put it in the best light, if that makes sense. Not these kind of lights, but in the best. And what I would say is, for those of you that think that it wasn't necessarily about the noise of like the pickups and stuff, like um, you could probably actually hear more of that with the Kemper because you could hear more. So maybe the Kemper did sound noisy. I get that, but what I'm talking about is the noise floor. So like if you just like mute everything, there was just like this. The Kemper did not have that at all. None. So yeah, I get what you're saying, but you kind of have to parse that out, and kind of look at that a little bit differently. Cool comparison. I was an early adopter. I had the V1 back when they were still introducing it to the market, with the cash register feature display. A few years later, I managed to get an advanced copy of the V2. Okay, so this guy got to use this thing a bunch. Yes, I'm a 2 amp guy. Um, let's see. Love the diversity of videos and subjects you cover here. Thanks, man. Used a Pod 11 through a clean tube amp for about 7 years in the 80s. I only got compliments. The kidney bean and the jank floorboard still work. It was good enough. So that's an interest. So I didn't try it that way, and maybe I should try it that way, using the effects side only. So I guess that's something that we should think about with that thing, is not just the amps side, but back in those days, multi effects were kind of rare too. So having the multi effect side, the flanger, the chorus, all that stuff, and actually in the 90s, all those sounds were very, very popular. So it makes total sense to put this in front of an amp and then use the effects side of it, which is pretty cool with the floorboard. Yeah, we're pre Kemper, we're pre. Are we pre Sans amp then too? So yeah, I get that. That's cool. I toured with the Pod Pro rack. Now, a lot of people did do that, and it was awesome. Um, it still has a hallowed space in the studio rack and still gets used to cut demos and sometimes more. It holds its own against modern uh, modelers, which is interesting. So that's interesting. I know the later stuff they did advance quite a bit. I think the point of this was I just wanted to really go to the earliest one, you know, Hi, can you do a video on why guitar strings are shocking me? Yeah, you probably have a bad cap in your amp. Uh, the Kemper sounds brittle and synthetic and has a wonky end trail. Yeah, digital. Yeah, you're making that crap up. That's what everybody says, right? That's what everybody says. It sounds brittle and blah blah blah, and it has this wonky end trail. That's like the trope that everybody says. It's not true. It's just not true. Come over to my house and use it. It's not true. Chances are you never even used one. The first units that were released sound more analog than the next gen pods. Uh, blah 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 blah. He just goes on about how famous people, this that this and that and this and that. Okay, yeah. You know what's funny? Many people in the guitar world would probably say most gear that's almost 30 years old or near vintage and thus sounds better. I wonder if they would say that's happening here. You know, it's funny because the opposite goes with digital, right? But I really think there's value in having this thing. I said I was going to sell it, but I mean, for the $100, I might as well just keep it around because I think we might be able to do some fun stuff with it. To be fair, a comparison with a modern, cheaper option like the whatever that is, Chinese thing, or more, or whatever against the pod would have been a little more instructive. It will still be a complete floor wiping. The latest Chinese gear is shockingly good these days. It won't threaten the axe effects, Cortexes and Kempers of the world, but you would certainly get away with the live rig. Personally, I hated the pod, not because of the tone, but because of the noisiness. I agree. I just couldn't get a clean signal out of it. I always figured that back then the bad tone would be fixed with a good EQ. Nowadays, you couldn't get away with it. So the comparison with a more expensive modeler, or a cheaper modeler, here's the thing though. The list price of that thing when it came out in 1998 was $1,000. It was $1,000. A Kemper, that Kemper player that I'm using now, is $749, I think. what you can get for an actual. Now, I understand that some folks will tour with a head rush, the cheaper head rush. Some folks will tour with some very inexpensive things. I get that. But when you really look at pro level modelers that you can get for under $1,000, um, it's mind blowing. And so that's why I didn't do that, because I was like, no, I want to just know what the first thing was. It doesn't matter what it costs. And this is the latest modern thing. Um, yeah. And if you adjust $9.99 for uh, inflation, that's $1,900. So what can you get for $1,900? A quad cortex is less than that. A full blown one, the big one, the full blown big Kemper is less than that. So yeah. Are we really surprised that a 25-year-old first generation modeler isn't as good as the modern stuff? If it was total absolute trash, it wouldn't be on so many records from back then. That's not the point. We know that, but again, there are folks who are they just believe that, well, I tried this, so modeling sucks. I hear it all the time. I wouldn't have made this video if I hadn't heard that. I've heard it for years. I've been making Kemper stuff videos since 2015. I bought a Kemper like in 2015 or 2016, and I think it was 2017 actually, and been making videos for a long time about Kemper stuff. And in every video, I swear, man, it's like, well, I tried this Line 6 pod back in 1998 and it sucked, therefore all digital stuff sucks. And the guy, the N Trail guy, and all those guys, everybody who's just like, they just dismiss it completely. And I'm like, wait a minute, let's look at the progress here. This is really cool, actually. Kind of put this more in a positive light, and then you start to realize, wait a minute, we've come a long way. And yeah, really, really cool. So yeah, I mean, I knew it was going to be better. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. If it was going to be exactly the same, it wouldn't have been a video. But at the same time, I think it's cool to see, let's see. People are saying it's not as bad as they thought. Some people are talking about how they have some old school tech that works because of the UI, which is true. It's really nice to just have two knobs and do everything. It's pretty neat. I used to have one of those pods back in the day. I used to take it to work for my lunch break, and it suited the purpose. Absolutely. And so that's what we have, like Positive Grid Mini and that kind of stuff. Hey, Zeba. No. You cannot dig a hole, buddy. Come here. Thank you. I had a Line 6 Stomp Box amp modeler back in the day, like the DL4. I remember those. I do remember those. Yeah, so a lot of folks have tried a lot of older stuff. I get that, but that's not the stuff they make now. Yes, digital stuff has improved at least 100-fold, but it's in comparison to valve and tube amps that's the real comparison. Plus the Kemper Tone Master. Plus, is the Kemper or Tone Master going to get you all the way there? Yes. As near as makes no difference, yes. If you are willing to understand the technology and use the technology the way it was intended. I'm actually not that good at using it. I know that it is possible. Let me just say this. I know that it's possible to get even closer than I get because I'm not that good at using it. But that's not what I use it for. It's a tool for me. But you look at guys like Steve Sterlacci and those guys who tour all over the world. I mean, he tours all over the world. Military bases and all these festivals all over the world. And he does all this stuff, and he uses all this digital stuff, and it sounds amazing. And you also remember too, it's an application thing, right? Like I said in the video, it's kind of dumb to actually want to compare this stuff to a tube amp, because we know that we all want tube amps. If you want a stack of Marshalls and that's your hallowed grail sound, then nothing's ever going to compare to it, no matter what, because it's a mental thing, if nothing else, which is totally fine, because music is a mental thing. So I wouldn't worry about that. What I would worry about is, does it serve the purpose that you need it to serve? Here's the other thing. If a digital product serves no purpose in your life, then there's no point in having this conversation. If you live in the middle of nowhere and you can play wide open with a tube amp all the time and it's awesome, then there's no point in us even having this conversation. You don't need it, right? Um, but as your philosophy of use changes, there's a house right there. There's a house right there. There's a house right there. I only have a half acre. And what really sucks is my back of my house is actually closer to the neighbors than my front yard's bigger than my backyard. So I'm like actually closer to houses. So if I put a 50-watt tube amp in that room, or okay, if I put a 50-watt tube amp in this room right behind me, it's actually my dining room, but if I did, it would literally be, I can throw a tennis ball. I have to throw it as hard as I can, but I could throw a tennis ball and it would hit my neighbor's house, right? Which means if I play a 50-watt tube amp in this room right here, they're going to hear it. They're going to call the cops, right? So I can't do that. Philosophy of use has to change. Therefore, the gear has to change. But so there's no point in me comparing tube versus digital. I just want to get a good sound because I can't really use a tube amp where I live, right? So it has nothing to do with the actual will it get you there. It has to do with your philosophy of use more than anything. And I think that's something that people don't think about. This technology is about 30 years old. Back then, these were okay. The bands I knew back then never used it on stage, but cool comparison. Let's see. It's possible that the Line 6 pod would sound better with single coils. I know P90s are single coils too, but their sound profile are closer to humbuckers. Who cares? If you have to, well, I can't use this piece of gear with certain pickups. No, no. And the reason I chose a P90 guitar is because it's what I'm most familiar with. And honestly, of our viewers who watch our stuff loyally, they know, a lot of you in the comments also have my P90s and you know what they're supposed to sound like. So that's kind of why I did it. Because to me, they're my favorite they're my favorite pickups that we make. And so, and they're the ones that I know the best, right? So that's why I was like, I'm going to use the guitar I'm most familiar with, which is that Texas Toast Pink Paisley, and my pickups that I'm most familiar with, and that's why I did it. But yeah, if you have to like pick and choose what gear, especially with a digital product, that's the whole point. A digital product is supposed to be like, you know, the ultimate in versatility. Well, if you can't use it with certain pickups, it's stupid. If you can't use it with your favorite pickups, maybe you could only use it with single coils and it would be awesome. But the P90 guy would be pissed if he bought the thing for $1,000 in 1998. It didn't work with the pickups that he had in his guitar. It doesn't make sense. So yeah, no, these are fun. This is a fun conversation. Thanks for checking out our second channel. You can scan the other thing down here and go to the other thing, and you can go buy our other channel. If you're new to this channel, you can go buy our P90s at DylanTalksTone.com. Scan that little dude right there, and yeah. This little channel is growing. It's been fun. It's not monetized or anything, so there's nothing. I don't care about that. It's just fun to hang out and talk with you guys. Yeah, cool. Well, I guess we'll see y'all in the next video. Like and subscribe. See you next time.